Good morning, and today's going to be King Queen on the button. We have a poster, checks. It's to me, I open raise. I think this is just going to be my open raise range. I'm not going to have everything. I'm going to keep it with basically just the button range. I've got good position. It's going to be very wide. And what we see, we have two callers. We have big blind calls and then the limper calls. Overall, I kind of expect big blind to have a stronger range than the limper, or the poster, I should say. I think he's looking at maybe 20%. We only have 38 hands on him, and he's playing 30-14. And when we look at his blind stat, 0 out of 3 from the big blind, 2 out of 4 from the small blind. This is going to be the first time he calls a 2-bet. His fold to steals has been 101 out of 1, so we just don't know a whole lot. So I'm going to go with like these pocket pairs. I'm going to assume he 3-bets queens plus ace king and ace queen suited. I assume he's going to be playing with suited aces, some broadways, and so forth. So about 20% of hands. The poster, though, I'm going to assume that he would have raised all of these hands. Maybe we'll do that. That he would have open raised all of these hands, but since he doesn't, I'm gonna completely exclude them, and that's gonna leave a bunch of other hands. So I do think he's probably gonna play like suited aces, suited kings, probably suited queens. Probably should fold them, but this is a poster. So we're at 32%. Is this right? Who knows? Again, we don't have any stats on him. This is the first time he's at the table. So we see a flop of 10 jack queen. Pretty decent for us. Do have to be a little careful. All of those middle cards hit the calling ranges, so that this board could hit him. Probably hits him about as much as it hits me. Villain 4 probably has a little bit less hits. They're going to be weaker hits. But I think overall we're going to see a lot of calls here, and we have top pair with the open ender. I think this is probably a decent spot to go ahead and c-bet. I think we're c-betting our straights, our sets at 2 pair. Let's get this down and just kind of break it down. So just right there, you've got 18% is value 2 pair plus, and then you've got 41% with open ender. So I think then you're going to be putting in, so like the overpair kings definitely should reduce it. Yeah, because we've got kings in the open ender. So if we get rid of that, kind of move it into the value hand. I think we're good for that. Same thing with like the ace king of spades. Well, that's part of our straight. It's not all, with flush draw or whatever. And this is probably a good one. Overpair plus. You can even say top pair. I think that's getting covered by the open ender. It's going to have like king, queen, king, jack, king, 10, 10, 9. Do we have like gut shots? I think if we start adding all the gut shots, we're going to have a lot of hands because we're adding all of those aces. So I think in terms of the gut shots, it's going to be really kind of come down to like the ace queen. I think those are going to be some value hands for the gut shot, and that might actually be the only one. So top pair with that ace because we've got a gut shot. So we're actually c-betting quite a lot in this hand. We're expecting to get called quite a lot, but we've got a lot of value, a lot of equity, I think, built up in this hand. So let's see what happens. I bet half pot. Is that sizing right? Maybe. I think since we're going to be getting called a lot, we could go a little bit lower. I think this might be, I bet this is probably split between like a third and a 2/3 pot size. Maybe even a third because so many players are going to be calling. Or I expect I expect to get a lot of calls. So maybe if we go a little bit smaller, that might be a little bit better. So this guy calls. Villain 4 folds, so we're just gonna get rid of that. And then the question is, what does he call with? So the straight, I'm going to set this down 50% and just say I kind of expect a straight would probably raise at some point. So either here or the turn. If he does it, if he just calls, I think at that, unless this, so if he just calls and the turn is not a spade, then we're going to eliminate the straight. I think we would have seen a raise at that point. But right now we're going to say we're going to keep half of him in because maybe 50% chance that he does it the check raise on the flop. I think the set is a call. I don't really think that's going to be a raise. I think a two pair is going to be a call. Again, I don't think it's going to be a raise, not on a board like this. I think top pair is probably going to be calling. Middle pair maybe is going to be calling if it's part of, the open ender. So I think we're going to leave the open ender and flush draw here and keep like the top pair in as well. So we're looking at his range. It looks something like this, and he's gonna, since I'm gonna have more draws in my range than he does, I'm gonna have a slightly weaker equity edge, but I do think it's gonna be close at this point. Nine of spades comes out, bad card. I think that's just a bad card. I didn't want to see a spade at all. Villain checks, and at this point, even if I bet, I kind of expect him to be calling his straights, which he could beat us. I mean, I've got the highest straight, but also the spades. The question is, could we get value on the turn or could we get value on the river? So on this board, you can see that we do have some flushes, so we probably should be betting flushes, especially the nut and second nut flush. Probably less likely to bet if we have the king, because now the king blocks a lot of those straights, and it's going to be harder for him to call. So I think with the ace, I think the ace high flush draws is probably going to be better to bet. So if we kind of get rid of that and we just say we're going to bet the aces and everything else, but not the king high, I think that's fine. I think that's probably okay. I think straight flush is probably a check. I think the sets are probably check behinds as well. I do think straights probably has some value. The problem I'm seeing right now is that if we include in that straight, we've got a huge number that we're c-betting. And if we have the straight and we don't have the spades, it makes villain more likely that he has the spade. So I kind of think we're going to be checking lists a lot, because again, we can't just, that flush got there and the flush is definitely in his range, and if we bet and he check raises, I think we're going to have to fold, and that would be actually a pretty strong play if he had the king, or even if he had the 8, maybe like an 8 of spades. That would actually be a pretty strong play. So I kind of like the check that I just made. Maybe the checking everything that I have. If the expectation I think would be if he bets the turn, I call, and that's probably a good way to go about it. 4 spades gets there, and that makes it even worse. So now any lone spade gets there. Villain bets 8. About 25% of the pot. I don't think I can fold. I do think he's going to have a lot of flushes, but once I checked, I think he's probably going to be betting the straight as well. Go for some value. So if we look at that, it's about 50-50. About 50% of the time, I think I'm going to win. 50% I'm going to lose. I only need 17% equity. I think I have that. It's going to be even better if we start adding some of these other hands. So the question is, if I raise, do I get folds? I'm never getting folds from the flushes. I think the nut and the second nut are definitely calling, and I don't block any of those. So I think this is going to be a call here. Kind of goes back to the turn. Let's check with the anticipation of calling on the river. If he has the spade, he has the spade. So I did call. He shows king jack of diamonds. Had the straight. That was actually in his notes. So we won that hand. let's add some notes to it. So we did, he called button 5 big blind, raise after poster with king jack of diamonds. He is out of position, check call 50%, check, and then he bet, we'll say about 30%. I think that's probably about right. On a queen of spades, jack of spades, 10 of hearts, 9 of spades, 4 of spades. All right. How do I think I played? Did I lose value? I think the only question I really had was that the bet sizing. You know, if I bet a third of the pot, keeps more hands in. Keeps more hands in. We are afraid kind of the spade. If I bet larger, the pot gets larger. I'm going to have to call. Larger bet on the river. Half pot's probably okay. I kind of think it's going to be split. Again, GTO would be split between the smaller and the larger size. I'm not sure if half pot would have been okay. It's something I would have to look at. But here, I don't fault my play. I think I played it okay. I think I played it the best I could. Turn and the river were just kind of bad runouts for our hand, so can't really be super aggressive. He could easily have had to have a spade. I think we just call, see what he has, and hope our hand takes it. So hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another one.